Good afternoon, everybody. Hope we're all okay. I managed to join. Apologies for the 5-minute delay. We're just making sure we got everything set out and laid out correctly. We are joined today by Malcolm Murphy, who is the Sales Director of Mimecast, who will be leading the session. As a quick reminder for you all, this will be going into the State of Email Security Report, which was procured by private and public sectors, network managers across education, businesses, councils, so a broad range of platforms, which really showcase a broad range of attack vectors as well. I think it'll be extremely useful for you all in planning your next year's security platforms and assessing the threats that you might be facing. I will hand over shortly to Malcolm Murphy, who will, I'm sure, give himself a short intro and run through the report. And yeah, if any questions, let us know, and we'll get through to them at the end. All right.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jazz. Thanks for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for those of you who've battled the technology. Understand one or two people struggling to get on, but I'm so glad you're here. As Chaz said, my name is Malcolm Murphy. I run sales engineering for Mimecast in the UK. Mimecast is an organisation that is focused on protecting people's communications, people's data, and the people themselves. All about risk, making sure that organisations have got the appropriate controls in place for the risks that threaten the way we work today. We work in our inboxes, and making sure that we have the right security around that is very, very important. So the State of Email Security is a piece of research that Mimecast conducts, and I'm going to talk through the results of this year's survey. Let me explain a little bit about what we've done. This is the 7th time we've done this. We've spoken to nearly 2,000 IT professionals at all levels, senior levels down to practitioners, the people doing the work, across 13 countries. As Chaz said, it's a mixture of public, private, third sector organisations of all sizes and shapes. So it's a very inclusive selection of organisations that we invite to gather their opinions to help understand. And what we're trying to do here is understand what the landscape is, hear from the people out there, and I am going to say in the trenches, out there in the trenches, working in this area non-stop, and what's it like out there? What can we glean from our neighbours about the state of what's going on, and then what can we as an industry work towards to try and make things better? So some key findings, and the first one here, someone is bound to be shouting into their computer, well, that's obvious. It is obvious, but it's worth bearing in mind. Email usage continues to rise. Now, and I'm going to talk about the second point here later on, is other communications media channels are in place. A lot of us now are doing communicating over Slack or via Teams or, heaven forbid, WhatsApp. So there's lots of additional channels that we're incorporating into our digital work style, but email is still rising. Email usage continues to rise, and this is so important because it's tempting to forget about email. When we look at where the new threats or the new areas are coming in, it's tempting to forget about email, but email is still the big one, and it's still growing. And 3/4 of the organizations we surveyed said, yeah, and actually we're seeing the increase in the use of email. We're also seeing an increase in the threats. So email-borne threats are still hitting our gateways and our inboxes every day. The attacks, nearly 3 in 5 people are saying the attacks are getting more sophisticated. I'd be tempted to say the other 2 in 5 probably aren't looking in the right places, because as Mimecast, what we see is there's still that high volume, low complexity stuff being thrown out there. There's still lots of easy to do email-borne attacks, but the attackers are getting more sophisticated. Worryingly, 2/3 of the people saying, yeah, we were hit by ransomware. And I'm going to talk about ransomware a little bit later on. And almost everybody, and I suspect everyone on the call knows this as well, but almost everybody, 97% of the people that we spoke to said, yeah, we've been targeted. My organization's been targeted by phishing, email-borne phishing, impersonation, trying to incent us to do something. Yeah, my next point here, again, might sound obvious. That the worrying thing maybe is that it's only 2/3. Organizations, the people we're speaking to, feel that their companies, their organizations need to spend more on cybersecurity. I think that's an easy thing to say. Of course, if we had an extra dollar to spend, of course, there's something useful we can do with it. I like to take this data point and think about it maybe a slightly different way, which is I don't have enough resources, I don't have enough money, I don't have enough people, I don't have enough time. Maybe I never will. So what's important is to make sure that I've got the appropriate controls and I'm maximizing the value and the benefit of the controls that I'm putting in place. You know, I'm locking the right doors, I'm boarding up the right windows, I'm focusing on the places where the biggest or the most serious or the most likely threats are hitting my organization. I can't do everything, I have to prioritize. Again, pretty much everybody has got something in place to monitor and protect against email-borne threats, or are actively planning to roll one out. And I would say that that's good. There's it's on the slides here, but it's an often quoted statistic, 90+% of breaches, they start with an email. It's still the best, the most attacked route into my organization is coming in through an email. So it seems appropriate that I've got protection against that because it's the big ingestion vector. 9 out of 10 people pretty much are using or planning to use AI and machine learning to improve cybersecurity. Well, of course they are. You can hardly open your browser this morning today without seeing AI coming into play, and it has its place. It's a sensible thing to do. I'm going to talk a little bit later on about the use of AI from the point of view of the cyber criminals. So it seems sensible to deploy that technology as part of the detection layer as well, particularly part of the protection stack. But the next point is very, very interesting. I will elaborate a bit later as well. 19 out of 20 people we surveyed, and let's assume, and I know the world isn't quite like this, but the vast majority of organizations, if they haven't migrated their communication services, their email services into the cloud, that they're looking at that journey. But 95%, near enough, of the people we surveyed are looking at what comes, the security that's coming with those cloud providers and saying, yeah, that's not good enough for my needs. I need to complement the, if you like, out of the box, no such thing as a box anymore, but out of the box security. I need to complement that with additional security controls to protect against this deluge of threats that's coming in. Now, the threats are coming in. The next piece is, okay, how does the human layer respond? How do the people in front of the screens at the keyboards, when they're being targeted, or maybe they're just on the receiving end of a brute force bulk phishing email, or malware delivery or ransomware, whatever it might be, the people are a key line of defense. If we can stop some of it at the gate, then great. Some of it's going to get through. So now my next level of defense is, can I help my people make the right choice at the time at which they might be encouraged or incented to do something that's harmful to the organization? So again, pretty much every organization is providing some form of cyber awareness training to its workforce. Speaking personally, one of my proudest moments as an administrator of a 4-person network in this house was when my daughter came to me with an email and said, "This looks suspicious. I'm not going to click this link. Is that right?" It's like there was dancing and hand clapping here because my work's done. She correctly spotted that it was trying to distribute malware. I couldn't get her interested in what I then did, which was fire up a sandbox and see if it was genuinely bad or not. But she did the right thing. She recognized something that was out of the ordinary and asked the question. So that's what you want. That's what we want. We want our users to have a healthy level of suspicion, and awareness training is a key component of that strategy. Because 80% of people are believing that the company's at risk because not malice, but inadvertent bad practice or inadvertent carelessness or negligence or just people making a mistake. That's the ubiquitous USB stick on a train or laptop left in a cafe. Those kinds of things, they're the things that make the headlines. But mistakes by employees that lead to data breaches, and organizations believe we're at risk of that. I mentioned earlier on, while I was saying, and it is true, email's still the big vector. It's still the big collaboration tool. It's where we work. It's how we communicate with people by default. But the other collaboration tools are accelerating at a rapid pace as well. And they introduced lots of benefits, but they're also introducing risks. And pretty much 3/4 of organizations are saying, yeah, I'm expecting this to be the next one. We're seeing, as Mimecast, we're seeing Teams-borne malware, and we're seeing possibly, as we were talking a moment ago about user awareness, possibly a slightly lower level of awareness in the Teams or the other communication channels today. People may be a little bit less vigilant in some of these other channels than they are in email. Everyone's used to the idea of email being a risk. We're conditioned to think about it, whereas the WhatsApps or the Teams or the Slacks, perhaps a little quicker, a little less formal, and therefore a little riskier. So that's a concern that organizations are worrying about and looking at how they close that gap. Now, this is you put this slide up and you go, oh, wow, this is a big and bold statement. And obviously you've got to view this from the perspective of an organization. So are data breaches global events? Yeah, probably not. But from the context of an organization or an individual responsible for keeping data secure or complying with the GDPR, then they are viewed as a risk. So there's a little bit of hyperbole on this slide, but there's a really, really important point behind the hyperbole, which is data breaches are a huge risk. If I may share a personal story for a moment, I have school-age children, and the school is working with third parties on a project around helping maintain attendance rates. Key thing. There's lots of data that says attendance rates have suffered post-pandemic, and it's hard. You've got chronic truants, and it's hard to get people back in, and so on and so forth. Lots of issues. I'm sure the people on the call know the issues much better than I do. So our school is participating in, it's not quite a nationwide project, but it's a reasonably large piece of research to monitor and look at interventions and how that can be. The school's working with a couple of third parties. The point being here, we're asking the parents to allow the school to share data with those third parties for your personal information, high value personal information that was given to the school in a certain context and is now going to be used for other purposes. And there's a high burden of trust there. And that's just an isolated example, one project for a small number of schools. But how do we make sure that our organizational responsibilities and good practice is being consistently followed? How do we keep the data of, in this case, parents and students, how do we keep that safe? What would the consequence be of an inadvertent leak of, let's say, personal information of a parent and attendance information of a student to the wrong people? For a certain use case there, that's quite significant. I was going to say catastrophic, and that's just adding to the hyperbole, so I'll say quite significant. It's our responsibility as people looking after personal data to make sure that we're doing the right thing by it. So moving on to again some more key findings from the report. 40% of organizations, of people, nearly 40% of people are saying that the attacks through the collaboration tools is on the rise. It's already at a reasonable level and it's increasing. Nearly 3/4 of people think their organization is going to be damaged by an attack exploiting the collaboration tool communications channel. And similarly, 3/4 believe this is something that needs to be looked at. So I don't think anyone's saying we think email's a solved problem. I think what they're saying is, hey, we've got to cover this hole as well. So it's the slightly perceived as maybe the slightly softer target, and certainly we're seeing the bad actors getting themselves over there as well. They've got their attacks ongoing on email. That's not going away. They're still continuing to do stuff, but they're looking at the new communications channels and saying, hey, we can do some stuff over here as well. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to, broadly speaking, do three things, and then it's ransomware, it's phishing, and it's spoofing. So I'm trying to get organizations somehow to allow my ransomware in there. I think the data point from earlier on was, it depends which way you use, so 2 and 3, 70, 75%, that kind of margin. The interesting thing here is from our data, that's growing. So 61% in 2020. So we've seen a 20% increase from, nearly 20% increase from 60% to 75% of the respondents are saying, yeah, we've been hit by this stuff. I'm sure you've seen the data before. It says when you get hit, you can't trust the bad guys to give you the data back, even if you pay them. So the impact to an organization, and think about education particularly, more and more of the delivery of education is in a hybrid environment. Schools are students are using learning platforms. Collaboration technology within the school is incredibly prevalent. We've moved to digital. I don't want to say it's an existential risk, but the impact to learning of a school being severely hit by ransomware is non-trivial. And 1 in 5 organizations, big and small, commercial, private, third sector, when they get ransomware, 1 in 5, it's a week plus. It's a big deal for them to be able to run their business. Phishing remains important. Most organizations, more than half of the people are saying, yeah, we're seeing more phishing. And in particular, if I'm a federated organization, I'm a multi-academy trust, I'm a trust of trusts, the opportunity for the phishing type attacks or for the impersonation, where the impact of being able to compromise a senior person's account, that's quite significant again. And the other piece, the third part of the third leg of the stool, is spoofing. People pretending to be your organization. People, and again, if you look at the provision of education right now, I mentioned, a simple example where we're contracting with a third party to do some research into attendance and some factors around attendance. But if you look now, education is there's a supply chain around education, and there's lots of links in that chain, and it's important that I can trust that someone says it is where they're coming from, the digital communication. I can trust that it's coming from who it ought to be coming from, and that they can trust me as well, and that no one's out there on the internet pretending to be me or pretending to send communications that look and feel as if they're coming on my behalf. So phishing and spoofing, attacks on the rise, and it's a concern for people. It's a concern for people, and it's relevant. It's relevant in today's education market. That's how I triumvirate: ransomware, phishing, and spoofing. That's what the bad guys are trying to get. The payloads they're trying to get to deliver to us. So, mentioned about artificial intelligence. We're seeing lots and lots of evidence that the bad actors are using AI type techniques both to craft and deploy their malicious payloads, the malware, etc. It should be part of your detection stack. I think there is definitely a place for a reputation-based list. There is definitely a place for rules-based knowledge and predictive defenses. But there's also a place in that stack for behavioral analysis and detection and looking for anomalies and responding that way. Along the lines of what Mimecast, when obviously not the only people who do this, but Mimecast use artificial intelligence at multiple points along our detection stack to try and figure out the things that we haven't seen before. Look for the behaviors, look for the patterns, look for the thumbprints in an email that suggest there's something wrong about it. Look for the communication from somebody that says, hang on, you're saying you're Dave from Acme Inc., but that doesn't match your email address, or that's not quite the right A, or this is a new, all of that stuff, looking for the bad patterns. It's an important part of the solution stack. It's an important part of how we defend ourselves against an ever increasingly sophisticated set of threat actors. Earlier on I said that organizations, the person at the keyboard behind the desk, most likely not an IT professional, but that they're a key part in the defense layer, and that making sure that those employees are properly equipped to make the right decisions at the right time is a key part of your strategy. Most organizations said, yeah, we've got something in place, and that's nice. But the question to ask is, okay, am I doing the best that I can here? Am I properly enabling my people? Putting someone through a 30-minute course once a year that says, hey, don't click bad links, off you go, that's probably not the best that you can do. But equally, the over ambitious phishing simulations that say, hey, click here, you've won £1 million and a pay rise and a promotion. Those things, they make the news for obvious reasons. So it's about finding the right balance. It's around continuity of learning. It's about creating a culture inside your organization that supports people when they're at the point of having to make a decision. And I think one of the challenges that we can fall foul of is making this hard to learn. So we've got to make it engaging. We've got to make sure that people understand the rationale behind this. We've got to make sure that the content or the material that we're providing to people is timely and accurate and worthwhile to engage with. So my ask really is just consider what your organization's doing. Is it the right thing? Don't underestimate the power of that person behind the desk, person at the keyboard, and help them, enable them to be that extra line of defense. We have technology before the email hits them, but someone's going to get through. They're a key part in making sure your organization, if they don't click the link, the ransomware doesn't get deployed. So it's very, very important. That's all I had to say this afternoon. Appreciate we scheduled a bit of time, but I want to make sure we have lots of time. If the technology's working, and I know we had some issues before, but if anyone has any questions or comments, I'll happily take questions from the floor. If not, if we are still having the technical issues, then maybe we can take them offline over email, and we'll figure out how to get consolidated email responses to people. Chaz, have we got access to the Q&A box?
We are having a few issues with the Q&A box at the moment. We do have a couple of questions that have been emailed to me though.
Okay, let's see what they are.
Let's have a look. So we got, is there an education-based pricing structure to support the education sector?
There absolutely is. Well, I only speak on behalf of Mimecast. Basically, students go free. So I think, one of the challenges for an education organisation is relatively small number of staff, relatively large number of students. If you're paying on a per student basis, it can get in the way. Especially students. There's probably some details around this that I need to just make sure. Little asterisk says terms and conditions apply, but the broad brush is students go free.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any other ones on here? Yeah, we currently use Defender. How will Mimecast work with our current tenancy?
Okay, so I didn't talk about this at all. Mimecast has technology connections with various other technologies, so we can share information and build workflows between the different parts of technology in your stack. So we have an integration with Defender, and that enables you. I don't want to labour the point here, but it enables you to share information between the two. If we find something, we can share it with Defender and potentially enable it on the endpoints or vice versa. So the idea here, and it comes back to the point I was making earlier on about budgets. Everyone feels we don't have. Everyone, it's about 2/3 if memory serves right. So people saying, "Hey, I don't have enough money to spend on cybersecurity." So it's important then to make sure that any money I do spend, I can maximize the value from that. And one of the ways in which Mimecast helps organizations derive maximum value from that investment is to ensure that we work with the other elements of your technology stack. So that enables better workflows, enables threat data sharing, enables better protection.
Okay, thank you very much. Just gonna wait a sec, see if we have any more roll in here. So we got based on the report you shared, what advice would you give to education establishments looking to unify their email security?
Looking to unify. So I think the thing that it depends what unify can mean a couple of things. So I'll make a couple of assumptions. If it's not answering the question, then please type in further into the chat. But you can unify. You may have disparate, and I think one of the challenges for an education establishment might be a mix of technologies. Over time, things evolve. School never stops running, so you need to unify and bring that in. One of the other challenges can be, hey, my single school is now part of a trust or a consortium, or my responsibility now is for A and B and C, and I've got to figure that out. So maybe a mix of technologies, or it may be the case of, hey, we're using email and now we're bringing in these other collaboration technologies. So unify can mean several things. It can probably mean 3 or 4 things I haven't thought of as well. I think the advice I would give is, okay, take a step back and really think about the risks that you're most concerned with. Is it, I talked about the big 3. Is it ransomware? Is it phishing? Is it spoofing? Think about what what you're concerned about. Think about where you most want to deploy the protection. Think about maybe what the quick wins are. Maybe it is in the awareness space. Maybe maybe it's going to take me, I don't know, 2 years perhaps to get my technology posture to where I want it to be. Maybe there's a quick win in empowering the users in the short term. And look, whatever technology stacks you've got, look at how you optimize it. So if you can consolidate, maybe if the awareness training is plugged into the email security, if that's a benefit, it's easier to work with, because one of the challenges is we don't have enough people, and in education sector that's particularly acute. So if I can reduce the administration burden by bringing multiple of those functions into one platform, that's a benefit. It probably is a pound note benefit, but it's definitely an operational efficiency benefit. So I'd be looking at that and saying, okay, you can do the security for me. That's great. I need that. What else can you do? What else can this platform empower me to do?
Okay, yeah, perfect. Just going to cherry pick a couple more here. We've got, you mentioned cybersecurity awareness. We have an existing platform for this. How do you ensure that staff are completing the modules and ensuring that there's a strong development in that?
So I've got a technology product Mimecast answer, and then I've got a behavioral answer to that question. So let me get the product answer out of the way. The product answer is within our product, we've got the ability. It's quite a sensible, it's quite an easy to use dashboard for the administrators to see which users are completing the training, how they're doing on the training, and what one of the key indicators is how quickly are they completing the training. If people are, if we're sending out, let's say, monthly videos, if people are waiting 27 days before they answer the question, they're less invested in their own role to play than people who are consuming the content and looking at the stuff. So all of that information is encapsulated, and risks, or we provide some hotspots for people. We give them a user score, and that enables it empowers the administration team with information. Okay, that's the technology answer. That's the product answer. The question then is, okay, what do I do with that? How do I how do I make it safe for people? One of the big is this massive disconnect. Every organization I talk to, I'm talking about awareness training, there's perhaps not every organization, most organizations, there's massive disconnect. Security team says, look, I don't care if it's a false positive. If you think it's dodgy, report it to me. Let me know. Let me take that burden off of you, Mr. or Mrs. User. Users, on the other hand, we're terrified of putting our hands up and saying, oh, I think this is a bit wrong. Almost that fear of foolishness gets in the way of us making a strong security decision. And I think, like I say, it's a lot of conversations that I have, and if we can do things to break down that barrier between the users and technology, and that's good. Teaching staff, non-teaching staff, there is a bit of a hierarchy sometimes in educational establishments. There's a bit of an us and them. But if we can break that down a little bit and help our colleagues make those choices and ask those questions and not feel that it's potentially foolish, then that's going to empower, it's going to strengthen the cybersecurity culture inside the organization.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. I think we'll do one more question now, and then obviously if you've joined from EduGeek, then feel free to message Net-Ctrl on EduGeek, or if you've joined via the email link, then of course feel free to email me and we'll get the answer for you. The last question we'll do for now is, a school in our local council has recently been victim to the rise of ransomware attacks. How do we ensure that we aren't the next victim?
Well, I'll preface this with there's no guarantees, so I'd almost rephrase the question is, how do we best protect ourselves? How do we give ourselves the greatest chance of not becoming a victim? The first thing is, okay, put the controls in place on the communications channels. Make sure you've got protections around your email, whatever that might be. And the report says most organizations feel, the vast majority of organizations feel, the default that comes with their cloud collaboration suite isn't strong enough. So augment that. Stuff's still going to get through. I think the best protection is a sort of healthy paranoid mindset. So let's assume something's going to get through. So the second thing is, okay, make sure my users, my teaching staff, non-teaching staff, support staff, anybody who I let loose in front of an email account, help them understand what bad looks like or what risky looks like and help protect them. I'd assume most organizations have got this as well, but keep students in a completely different part of the network away from valuable data. That's probably a good practice as well. Students much more difficult to get the awareness in. If I look at the things my daughter wants to do, some of the security alerts, the things that she's vulnerable to as a teenager, that's a more difficult proposition. So maybe keep them away from the risky parts of the network. But stronger controls at the gateway, strong awareness training, enablement culture inside the organization, and possibly some sensible good practice around data compartmentalization.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Malcolm. Very, very insightful from you. I think we'll have a lot of people who take a lot away from that session. Thank you everyone for organising this. Is there any other points you want to add, Malcolm?
No, thanks everyone for joining. We will, I think the plan is we can make this report available to anybody who's registered or attended the webinar today. We can send you the full report. It's a little like bedtime reading, but it's got some weight behind the points I've extracted today. So hopefully that's useful to people. And yeah, just if I can ask one thing, just as a consequence of attending today, just have a look at the situation inside your organization. Maybe ask a couple of questions. Okay, are we doing as good a job as we can do? If I could tweak one thing, what would I do to make it better? Just start that thought process, start that conversation. Hopefully we improve the overall security posture, and hopefully we protect one more organization or prevent one more ransomware attack or one more inadvertent phishing. Then the world's a little bit safer. So thanks everyone.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Cheers.